Kathy Caprino is a top-ranked career and leadership coach. She is a Forbes senior contributor. She is a LinkedIn top voice. She is a speaker, a podcaster, and an author, amongst many other things. Welcome back to the show, Kathy.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And
Yeah.
George, we were just speaking. Thank you for joining me on Finding Brave, my show. That was episode 302 for people who want to check it out. That was just a wonderful conversation about how to author your money story in an authentic way. And it was beautiful. So many wonderful insights.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me here.
yeah, it's always good to connect. So, refresh our memory. Tell us a little about your personal lives, more about your work, and why you do what you do.
I love that story about the personal life. No, nobody really asks that. Well, let's see. That could go on forever. I live in Stamford, Connecticut. I am a Northeastern girl. I have a beautiful family, two kids. My son is 27, my daughter's 30. I'm amicably divorced to my wonderful ex-husband, jazz percussionist, teacher. It's been a great life, and I am a singer on the side and perform a lot, and also a tennis player, and those things bring so much joy. So it's a wonderful life. Work. Well, now we could go on forever here. So let's give it to you in a few sentences. I can't say it without starting kind of giving the context that did have an 18-year corporate career, and it was successful on the outside, but not on the inside. And we're talking a long time ago. But I rose to a level of vice president, managing big budgets and staff and initiatives. I knew something was just not right for a long time. It was difficult for me in a lot of ways, although there was success, right? But when I hit 40, and that was 20 plus years ago, those bumps turned into full blown crises. What do I mean? Sexual harassment, gender bias, gender discrimination, toxic colleagues, narcissistic bosses before I knew what narcissism was, chronic illness. You and I have talked a lot about things, and I think you might relate to this. I really do believe it's all connected, and sometimes our body says what our lips cannot. And I had an infection of the trachea every 4 months for 4 years. And doctors would be like, I don't know, here, take some antibiotics, which also wreak havoc on our body too. Anyway, chronic illness. My kids were little then, so I had zero work-life balance. I wasn't in the fabric of their life. But really, worse than all of that was waking up every day saying, is this what I'm going to be doing with my life? Because it felt like it wasn't contributing in any kind of positive way. We were marketing good products, okay. But I did not do anything concrete. I tried, but I interviewed here and there, even got a job offer that was great, but it was less money. And there was a little hubris there. I don't want to go backward. Why should I? So, what happens often when we don't take forward motion movement for ourselves, the universe steps in. And I tell this a lot because people beware of this. But one senior leader said, we were looking for a new house, and he said, buy the biggest house you can. You have a long career here. Well, we did. And 1 month after was 9/11, and 1 month after that, I was laid off with 100 people. But I'm sure a lot of your listeners can resonate. Even when you're laid off with 100 people, you can feel traumatized and devastated, and you can feel like garbage thrown to the curb. And, well, in our country, a lot of people are feeling this. And when you compound being out of a job unexpectedly with shame and humiliation, I was lucky I didn't have to be walked out. I was told the night before, but they walked everybody out at 9 in the morning without being able to say goodbye to your staff. There's so much humiliation. Well, what that catalyzed for me, thanks to my therapist in a great discussion when I was weeping, he said, I understand this looks like the worst crisis you've ever faced. But from where I sit, it's the first moment you can choose who you want to be in the world.
Hmm.
Not what. You want to be another vice president? Who? Now, who do you want to be? And my mind went blank, which it does when I don't know the answer, but I blurted out, I don't know. I want to be you. And he laughed, and so did I. And he said, what does that mean? And I said, I want to help people, not hurt people and be hurt. That's all I knew. From that discussion, I became a marriage and family therapist, George, which was the most transformative experience because you're dealing often with rape, incest, pedophilia, suicidality, drug addiction. I even had a mother call me up of her 40-year-old son and say, Fred isn't coming to the session. He's in jail. He tried to kill his girlfriend. I mean, when you're dealing with these things, it requires that you basically turn yourself inside out and change yourself because you can't help people if you judge them or
Hmm.
but that wasn't the end. I found coaching, and then I found career and leadership coaching, which to me is just this amazing amalgam of sitting with people. You know, they come to me because they want change. They don't come to me because they want things to stay the same. So often they're scared, often they're angry, often they're very confused. What that allows me to do is kind of use all the skills and talents and experiences. Plus, being a writer, you know, my dad, this is a long answer to your question, hours later, but my dad was a chemist and a scientist. And early on, we would debate stuff. And I would be emotional, and he would say, mm-mm, facts. I want data. And that used to get me so angry. Data. Well, I am that person now. I don't like to spew stuff that I don't know anything about. I like data. I like research. And so I do, you know, having a big LinkedIn following, I do a lot of polls. Sometimes they get 50,000 views and thousands of votes. And I love it because then I can turn that into frameworks, books, articles, and courses where it's not just me talking at people. It's frameworks of action and idea and insight that they can use. So that's it. That's the work.
Well, I knew that you were a tennis player. I didn't realize you were a singer, so you're gonna have to share a little bit more
Oh.
about that sometime. But that's so much profound stuff and so many questions that I perceive. I mean, when somebody asked me what do you want to be, you know,
Yeah,
10 years ago, I would have had a really hard time answering that question, certainly 20. And now I have a better sense of it. But I think most people, well, I don't know. And in times of change and disruption that we're certainly living through, everything you described about shame and being devastated by being out of a career and worrying that maybe my career path's not going to be that straight line that my parents wanted for me. There's just so much stuff. And yikes.
it's really true. And as we were talking before, I am not a Pollyanna. I am not, woohoo, it'll all work out. Sometimes it doesn't all work out the way we dream and want. And I have seen, and I learned this kind of in therapeutic training, we can bloody our heads against what is,
Hmm.
or we can say, this is what is. Now, how do I want to navigate that in a way that I'm my highest self? People say, what is that? We can talk about it. Um, but also, I do believe, and I've seen it over and over, that many of the things, and I don't mean to trivialize, but many of the things we thought were the worst things that ever happened to us, if we can approach them differently with curiosity, with hope, with prayer, if that works for you, I'm always looking for, okay, if in 5 years I could look back and say, I'm grateful for that, what would have to be different? What could it mean? So, for instance, for me, I have done some teaching. I've taught some of my own courses, and it's some of the most joyful work because also working with a group, I find that, let's say there's 10 people in my course online, they're meant to be together. They're from all over the world, but in that moment, there's something that was meant to be that they're there at the same time, learning from each other. So, as I mentioned, a friend of mine I was playing tennis with last night said, I can see you as an adjunct professor in about five different departments here. And I have taught at one graduate course at NYU, and it was really a life exploding experience. Wouldn't that be interesting? And I have a third book I'm working on now. If we can look at, wow, I didn't want this, I didn't expect this. This is really difficult, and I'm scared. And what could it be pointing me to that I wouldn't have even been entertaining ever were I not in this situation? And some people say, yeah, that's just too positive, and it's too pie in the sky. But the thing is, we can choose what we believe. So why wouldn't we choose a belief that's life affirming? I mean, it's belief. So for me, those beliefs and helping my clients say, so I think we mentioned that. I might have mentioned this before, but I think it's a really good example. People will say, ugh, I've been on 10 interviews and I don't even move forward, even if I get to the last stage. And they'll say something to the effect of, I'm a loser. I don't have it. And I'll say, usually, hang on here now. Do you want that job? And their eyes get big and they often say, not really.
Not at all. Terrible.
So I say to them, you're not a loser. Your system is giving you what you want. So we either have to change how you feel about these roles, or maybe we start looking for things that you want. But energy, everything is energy in my view. And if you come to something with an energy of, oh, Lord, I don't really want this. Well, people can read that subconsciously or consciously. So I'm asking everyone to look a little deeper into what's happening and how can you grab hold of what am I meant to do and learn and shift in that maybe will be for my greater good. Now, I need to say this, don't get me wrong, when we've lost our job and we don't have money in the bank and we don't know where we're going to get food, this is not, this is excruciatingly difficult. And in hard times, we can't find the mindset sometimes to look for the silver lining.
Hmm. I think that when we do find ourselves in in that position where we're out of job and we've been living paycheck to paycheck, so I just need to find another opportunity to get money coming back in. So fine, out of the frying pan into the fire kind of a thing.
Absolutely.
But while we're there, let's start to open the aperture a little bit. Let's be brave enough to be asking ourselves these kinds of questions. And let's figure out how to put ourselves in a position where we can be more proactive about finding the right opportunity. I talking about being too Pollyanna. I may have just done that.
No, I love it. And what occurs to me, I have something called a career path assessment, and it is not I love research, quantitative and qualitative, but this is 13 pages of questions I wish someone had asked me when I was in my 20s. And honestly, George, if I had answered these questions deeply and honestly, I don't think I would have made some of the mistakes I made. Like my first job, I wanted in publishing and editorial, but I got an apartment in Brooklyn and I needed a job immediately. So this is a life lesson. I got a job in marketing and publishing, in science publishing. I wasn't a science person, but I was good at writing. So I was great at it. But 2 weeks into that job, I used to send out resumes from my Smith Corona typewriter, Methuselah here. I got a notice. The assistant editor, what was it? It was a really low level assistant editor job at a huge publisher in New York. Said, we have an opening, come in. And what did I do? Good girl, Greek Italian Kathy. I can't go do that because what if I get it? I can't quit this job. Makes me cry. because of that, I mean, I didn't even go in for the interview. Mistake, mistake, mistake. I didn't want to let anyone down. And yeah, they would have been mad probably a month into it if I quit. Okay. But I spent another 18 years in some form of marketing when really it's ideas and writing and editorial. And who knows if I would have been happy there. It isn't the point. But I think that, oh, where I was going, career path self-assessment. It asks, and you can, I'll give you the link. Anyone can download it. Something like 100,000 people have downloaded it. I've reviewed thousands of them. And I can tell you when I look at these pages, I see things that people don't see.
Hmm.
Their wants, their challenges, what they're really dreaming of, what they are afraid of, potential ideas. But if you answer these questions honestly, I think you're going to see the trajectory of your life in a different way. You're going to see, because it asks every job you've ever had, what you loved, hated, your proudest accomplishment, and the hardest challenge. But what's interesting is maybe people have had 8 jobs. Job one, two, and three, they ranked it a 10. They loved it. But then they moved out to something that was more lucrative or something someone suggested or something they thought was going to be good. And all of a sudden you're seeing twos and ones. But they forgot that they loved that job 8 years ago. And when you start to see that trajectory, you're like, hang on here. It's a mosaic. It's a myriad of things. And I made some decisions, some of which made sense at the time, but looking back, they didn't. So I invite everybody to, it takes 2 hours. And some people over the years have said, "Oh, I don't want to take the time to do that." Really? If you don't want to take 2 hours to really understand yourself, having a happier career is going to be a little harder. I don't mean to be snarky, but take it and see what you learn about yourself because it all starts first with self-awareness. Like as you said, I hope everyone asks themselves, now who do you want to be in the world? I think it's really quite a question because some people I think are even going to resist. And I do see this with women more, but men struggle too with this. Who am I to even ask, who do I want to be in the world? I don't have any special talents. My second book is The Most Powerful You about the 7 damaging power and confidence gaps. They're so prevalent, but number one is not recognizing our special talents, abilities, and gifts. And we all have them. We're all like that thumbprint, unlike anyone else on the planet, but we don't recognize it. You typically need outside help to recognize it. The ones who love you, your family, your friends, people who think the world of you, people who will go to bat with you, for you. We don't tend to see our giftedness ourselves.
Well, we're just so wound up in in all of it and just so busy
Yeah,
doing all the time. And it's
yeah.
always such a I've always gotten such a kick out of the advice of just be yourself because I think that there's so few of us that have any effing clue on who we
What
really
ourselves.
are. And if you were just to tell me or ask me what it is that I want, it's like, oh my gosh, total blank. And it's not that I don't know, it's just that we're not asking the questions right. And we're not asking any questions at all. I need to be prompted and start to sort of suss this stuff out of myself. And so the opportunity to go through this career path assessment where there's all these questions, oh, yes. So I'm remembering, I'm thinking about it in a way that I wasn't thinking about it before, and then that all starts to compound, and I will remind myself and start to learn a little bit more about myself. And then one last thing on this, if you think that, and that's something that I probably would have said a couple years ago, 2 hours, I'm not gonna spend that time doing that. Well, that's an investment. That is an absolute investment of your time versus a sacrifice or anything like that to get to better understand and know yourself. And I think that's such a valuable thing.
George, thank you for that. I had a client the other day say that she was experiencing loneliness. Yet when she described her life, it was very rich and full with companionship and love. So I said, what are you lonely for? And it turns out it wasn't anything to do with what we typically think, being in social interaction. It was loneliness for a certain aspect of her life that she felt that she couldn't really bring forward in the current work she was in.
Hmm.
So the other thing I want to share is it's interesting language. Like when you say, who the heck am I really and what do I really want? We'll come up with words, but sometimes those words are not really it. They're not like lonely was an interesting word for her to give me, but I sensed it wasn't what we think loneliness is.
Hmm.
But that's why sometimes, and this is not a pitch to come to me, but it's a pitch to take the assessment, it's a pitch to read a book that calls to you. Sometimes the words you're using aren't going to get you in the right direction. The language, the thoughts, even the beliefs, we think they're helping, but sometimes they're absolutely in the way. And we need a shift. Does that make sense? What do you make
Yeah,
from that?
for sure. I think it totally does. Uh, and I think really interesting choice of words that there's a part of my life that I'm not able to access or participate in the way that I used to or the way that I want to, and I feel lonely because of it. It's I think
Isn't that
that's really
interesting?
interesting. Yeah, it's a sense of loss, even though
Right.
it's right there. I'm just not able to, for whatever reason,
It's
do the
almost
thing.
like I'm lonely for the self I want to be.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, I think that's really profound. One of my favorite quotes, or I don't know if it's favorite, that most people lead lives of quiet desperation, and
Oh,
that's kind of what that is. And I think that that is, I mean, that's what we write
I,
music about and songs that perhaps you sing, Kathy.
I
We all,
I probably have sung a one or two of them.
yeah,
Absolutely. Quiet
no,
desperation. Let's just hope that everything you hear from George, everything you're, well, this is a topic. I was going to say everything you're reading is uplifting you. Huh? I mean, for me personally, I can't believe that I am the one that picks up the phone the minute I wake up. It is so, all the research shows, wow, that's not how you want to set the tone of the day. Meditation is a little better. 10 seconds, breathing, choosing what you want to experience. That said, I will say that, having written on Forbes and my Forbes blog and in the work I do, I want to stay abreast of what's happening in the news. I have become rabidly careful about what I ingest. I mean, I interviewed a woman, Michelle Gielan, years ago, and she was with a big news station. I'm forgetting what it is. I think maybe CBS, but they did research. I'm going to butcher it, but basically something like 30 seconds of difficult news will shape the entire color of the day, the
hmm,
entire experience of your day. I know that to be true. And so I'd ask people, your brain, your mind, your energy, your spirit, it's a precious thing. And no matter what news you read, even if you agree with what's going on in the world, it's still going to color things for you. It's still going to shape your thoughts and your mood. So I'd be really careful, especially in times fraught with change and divisiveness. Like, I know that if I read something where someone's taking down someone, even if at the heart of it, might agree with their view, that makes me feel sick inside.
hmm.
I don't want to read about, I don't want to see that kind of hateful divisiveness, especially first thing in the morning
For sure.
when you're so vulnerable and you're so open.
What could be a wonderful day? I just allowed something or somebody or some robot or algorithm to ruin it. That's a powerful thing that 30 seconds of bad news can shape your entire day. And I think that if we all give ourselves, just are honest, then we've certainly all been victim of that. And here we are in this time of great upheaval and uncertainty, good, bad, and different. There's things that are really, really changing, and the one constant is you and I. And the more I think that this is an advertisement for really knowing thyself and to really understand who I am, and therefore, whatever the circumstances are, I can still show up as my highest self, Kathy. So I think
That's
that
so beautiful.
this is all really, I think, inspiring and powerful, and a good reason to just make that investment initially of that 2 hours to do that career path assessment. So I really appreciate you coming back on the show. Tell us where everybody can connect with you. Tell us where we can find the assessment, and also the coursework and your coaching and your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, George. Oh, that's a lot. Okay, kathycaprino.com is the hub. You can go there, findingbrave.org, listen to George's amazing interview. That's episode 302. But, I want to say a little plug for that. I adore that podcast work because I learn it's like a master's class in everything. And recently, there have been amazing guests on validation, how that's a skill that transforms our relationships and our lives. And soon, Dr. Joel Salinas on conflict resilience, not resolution, because sometimes we can't resolve the conflicts we have, but resilience, how to be Oh, it's just out of this world. The free assessments at kathycaprino.com/free hyphen assessment. But there's all sorts of free trainings. There's another page, kathycaprino.com/assessments, where there's all sorts of things, even your dominant action style. Are you a striver? Are you a seeker? Why do we do all these things? Because the more you can understand yourself in your natural way, then you can leverage it. So if, for instance, I'm a seeker and an advocator, well, you're going to struggle if you're in a striver environment that's all about get the goal done, get the thing done. It doesn't matter how you feel about it. Ha. And so it's all there. What else? Most Powerful You, my book and course. You can find that at mostpowerfulyou.com. That talks people through the 7 damaging power and confidence gaps because it's really all about you loving yourself and accepting yourself. Yes, we all need tweaks, but once we can do that, we can have a much more expansive life experience and work experience that goes better, frankly, in the simplest terms. That's it.
I think that we would all like for things to go better. So,
There should be a podcast when it goes better.
yes,
That's maybe my next one.
I love it. Well,
Thanks, George.
yeah, for sure. If you enjoyed this as much as I did, show Kathy your appreciation. Share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. Go to kathycaprino.com. It's kathycaprino.com and check out everything Kathy's working on. You can find the career path assessment at kathycaprino.com/free hyphen assessment, and then check out the Finding Brave podcast, and also check out the Most Powerful You course as well, and start moving in the right direction, and start getting to know yourself better, and finding the work that you're really going to enjoy and that is fulfilling. So thanks again, Kathy.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Till next time, remember, do your part by doing your best.